There's a conversation that's yet to be had between the left and the right, and it needs to happen now. You're listening to Aacia in the Middle with Bobby Iacchino, and our guest today is Paul J Sisler II, author of The Red Herring Effect. Mr. Paul J Sisler II. He is a senior vice president and board member of the Jocelyn Foundation, a civil rights activist, and obviously the author of the book that everybody on Twitter is talking about, The Red Herring Effect. Mm-hmm. So, Paul, glad to have you. How are you?
Doing fine. Thank you, Aacia.
Great. And Bobby, of course, his reputation precedes him in good ways and bad. But, we're all familiar with you, and congratulations on everything that you have going on.
Thank you.
With Ameritrade and CME and all of that good stuff.
Yeah, so basically, no, I like doing these things because like my background is, Paul may not know, but my background is mostly financial from a professional basis. But I am a child of immigrants, and I come at a lot of things from that sort of place. I actually started my financial career pretty late in my adult life. I wasn't a young starter. I started about 26, 27, as opposed to in early 20s. And for some people where I was at the trading floor at the CME, even younger than that. And prior to that, I was part of a family business, a family food service business, Italian parents, both immigrants. I spoke Italian before I spoke English. So I come at a lot of things from a perspective of having built a family business with my family, which we then sold for not enough to live on. My parents had to start a new business, and that's when I went into finance. So that's a whole nother story to talk about that. But I'm excited to talk to Paul because Paul's background is different than mine. And I think we have some very similar broad conclusions, and we probably come at them from different places. So excited to talk about anything you guys want to talk about.
Great. It's interesting that you said that. I think that you guys have a lot of parallels, and it's going to be really interesting to see some of the connections here. I mean, you guys are both kind of brute, hardworking. You guys both have really interesting backgrounds and, strong family ties, strong, father connections. So, Bobby, you always talk about your dad and how important he was to you. And I don't know if you noticed in Paul's book, he dedicated his book to his father.
I did.
Yeah. So some webs there. One of the big topics in the red herring effect that people have been discussing is UBI. And I know we talked about that with Mr. Joe Walsh a little bit. And I think that that's something that, I wanted to take a closer look at. And Paul is more than an expert and well-read on, the various pieces of the possibilities with UBI. He is pretty much a walking encyclopedia of, everything that's been written around it. So maybe, Bobby, if you could share with Paul your take on UBI, because I know Jimmy was, hatefully against it. Joe was kind of against it, and you very bravely kind of shot up and said, you know what, I'm for it, with some caveats. So if you want to go into your opinion.
The way I look at it, I'm for things that are inevitable, and I'm for managing things that I believe are inevitable. Quick example, I was on the trading floor, those crazy people you see in movies like Trading Places and things, screaming at each other and doing transactions in a very old school way. And as that went computerized, I chose to leave the trading floor in 2004 while there was still a ton of activity on the trading floor because I saw its demise. And I said to myself, this isn't going to be here. I need to figure out a new way. And I see the demise of regular working jobs and every bit of technology that comes forward, yet the population isn't shrinking as fast as the jobs are shrinking. So there's going to be a larger and larger population of people, to no fault of their own, who not only don't have the skills to work, but just can't get them. I could use myself as an example, honestly. I mean, if all kinds of financial advisory just went automated and those automated robots beat me on every metric, I mean, I guess I go work at Lowe's in the paint department. I'm not sure.
But they wouldn't have your personality on your tattoo sleeve.
Well, they would not have the tattoos for sure. You could put a tattoo on a rope.
Yeah, you could do that. Would beef it
But
up
looking
a
at it
bit.
from that perspective, I find UBI to be something that's inevitable. So from my perspective, I want to say, okay, how do you get a UBI system that isn't looked upon as welfare? Now, whether you look at the word welfare as negative or not, I don't think is necessarily important. There's enough of the population that looks at it as a negative for whatever reason. And I like Milton Friedman's take on it, which is 40 years old at this point, and basically using UBI as sort of a negative income tax. So in other words, the lowest income tax rate does not exist at zero. It actually exists at a negative. So if you fall below a certain poverty line, I'm just going to paraphrase it really, but the amount you are below that poverty line gets negatively taxed. So let's say you put a tax rate of 50% on it. If you are past a certain point, you get the entire UBI, whatever it is. But for each dollar that you increase above UBI, you get 50% of it taken away as opposed to 100% of it, which some of our programs do now, which incentivizes people to improve their life by working even part-time. So if there's even part-time work available and they can improve their lives by working, they will. If they don't have the desire to do it, they don't have the desire. Jimmy Iorio told me that his criticism of that was that would develop a cash economy. I argue that already exists on a very, very large scale. People just try to avoid regular taxes. And also that it would, incentivize people to take part-time work over full-time. I could see that, but I think that's where a lot of work is going anyway. So that's kind of my take on it. Paul, I'd be excited to hear what you have to say about that, positive or negative.
Paul, I can't wait for the goods.
Well, there's a lot of avenues that you can go. Let me take a step back for a moment. I was almost done with my book, and Andrew Yang was running for president. And one of the things that caught my attention was how we should be paid for our information. That was one thing. Then he started talking UBI, and I'm just like, no, no way, because you're going to have people just living off of it. It's going to add to the welfare system. It's going to make it worse. So it's like, okay, I need to research this. So I started doing some research, and come to find out, back in the 1500s, a UBI was proposed, with Moore and Vives, in relation to people were stealing bread and they were being executed, and it didn't stop them from stealing bread. And the suggestion was to give them an income so that they didn't have the need to steal the bread, because if death wasn't enough to scare them from stealing bread because they're hungry, then what is? Well, why do that? Why not give them an income so that they can bring themselves up? So I started looking through, and I read things on like Huey Long and Thomas Paine, and I did some background into Martin Luther King. Even Nixon passed through legislation, a UBI, that went through the House and didn't pass the Senate. So it's something that's been discussed. So now you have to look at what kind of UBI do we need. So I went back and I actually rewrote part of a chapter and some subchapters in my book based on what I believe would be the best way to do a UBI. Where Andrew Yang's talking like $2,000 a month. That's not what if we do that, then things that you were talking about where people might decide to go to a part-time job and just live off of that and do that kind of thing, that's a possibility. So the other thing that you talked about was, once you hit a certain income, you start reducing it. I decided that we need to bring a cost of living wage into play. So I actually wrote a cost of living amendment in my book. And what we need is a wage that meets the cost of living. The origin of a minimum wage was to be just that, the cost of living. So whatever the cost of living is, that's what we need to do today. Because right now, $7.25 an hour is not cost of living. Okay, that's poverty. All right. So if we actually brought it up to the 16, 18, 19, wherever it's at right now, when I did my book, it came out to $16.50 an hour. Okay. My UBI would be a quarter of what the cost of living is. So let's say minimum wage, cost of living wage becomes $16 an hour, the UBI would be $4 an hour in equivalency. And everybody gets it. Because one of the things that we have to also look at in the Constitution is Article 1, Section 8, where common defense, general welfare, Congress has the right to lay and collect taxes, imposts, excises, so on and so forth, as long as it's uniform. Well, I believe that the UBI should also be uniform. So everybody receives it, from the poorest to the richest. Okay. And if everybody's receiving it, then what they do with it is on them. Where someone like yourself that, you're already invested, a UBI for you, that's free investment money. That's something you can invest. So that helps you out in that way. Somebody that's on the bottom rung, that might be extra food on the table. That might be, we got a flat tire and we got to get new tires, whatever the case may be. So it helps everybody in some way. And that's the type of equality, because my book is about equality. So I think the UBI should be equal for everybody. I also have a thing where every child that's born, from the day they're born, they start receiving a UBI in an account. And then when they turn 18, there's their money. So now every child has an equal start. So a rich kid, hey, now that they got party money, investment money, they got that new Beamer if they want it, whatever the case may be. Somebody like myself, that if I would have had that kind of money coming out of high school, I wouldn't have had to work 2.5 jobs to help support my family. No, my family would have been taken care of because of a UBI. My dad, truck driver, was in an accident, was disabled, and at 14, I was putting the food on the table. So that, if we would have had a UBI then, that would have helped out tremendously. My grades wouldn't have dropped in school because I had to work full-time jobs just to put food on the table for my family.
Yep.
Okay. So a UBI can help everybody, even if it's just a quarter of what a cost of living wage would be. That's backup money, that's savings, that's whatever. And then when kids become 18 and they get their UBI, education now becomes the issue. Okay. In school, they need to be taught, hey, at 18, you're going to have this money.
Right.
Here's what you be looking at in life. You don't want to take that $100,000 and just go out and blow it. You need to look at what you're going to be doing in life. Where's your college going to go? What career are you going to have? Do you want to put a down payment on a house? Do you need a vehicle? What's your situation? So education needs to come into play also. So it's not just about giving people money. It's about education, and it's about setting other things up that work. If you throw my UBI out there without a cost of living wage, guess what? Some people are probably right. There are people that are just going to live off the UBI and not progress. But that's going to be a minute amount. A lot of people already are under the impression that the welfare system, there's just so many people on the welfare system. I don't have the stats in front of me, but trust me, the welfare system is not the majority of the money that's used for entitlement programs. Social Security and corporations receive the majority of that money, not people that are on food stamps and TAMP. Okay. That's like, I think it's only like 8% of the total money that's allotted for that, where Social Security is like 25%, and corporate elites receive, corporations receive like 33%. So the majority of the money is not going to all those people on welfare. It's a lie. It's propaganda. So a UBI is going to be helpful in a lot of other ways. The other thing that we need to look at, one of the things that you were talking about, we're going into and Andrew Yang talked about it, the cyber industrial revolution. Okay. We're coming into a lot of AI technology and a lot of robotics and stuff like that. And for people that don't think that that's the kind of stuff's going to happen, I got 20 years in a casino. You would have like 30 cage cashiers working at the cage that were cashing people out and doing all the coin and stuff. The slot machines went to paper, And now they got these kiosks that you go put that paper in the kiosk and it gives you the money. And when you go up to the cage for anything, there's one, maybe two cashiers. So you're talking about an elimination of jobs and kiosks that have now replaced human beings. Go to your grocery store. I mean, granted, we're all pissed that Walmart has, 28 million checkout lines and only 2 are open for operation. But now they got self-checkout. Self-checkout is becoming big, not just at Walmart, but almost every grocery store you go to, they have self-checkout. I'm up here in Northern California. Lowe's and Home Depot have self-checkout. So all of this stuff is also hitting not just the back of the line. People think that's just going to happen in the warehouses. No, this is frontline stuff also. Pretty soon you're going to go into a McDonald's and there's not going to be a human being working in there. You're going to go in, you're going to put in your order, machines are going to pop it out, it's going to come on a conveyor belt, and you're going to get your order. That's where it's headed. There
shouldn't be human beings eating there either. So.
Well, right. But we need to look at all of these different things. A UBI, and I agree with you, Bobby, it is inevitable. It is going to happen. Yep. But how it's done and how we pay people and how we do wages, personally, I think we should go down to 30-hour work weeks, raise that cost of living wage up to about $22 an hour. And now businesses have to open up and bring in more people. That's going to create more jobs. Okay. That's how you're going to help the influx of losing jobs to automation, is by reducing hours to create more jobs.
What I really like,
then the other,
let me jump in for a second. What I really like about, your rendering of UBI is this child development program and attaching it to education. Mm-hmm. What I can see with that, and there's so many points on this, when you're about to turn 18, you're in high school, that could be part of, your curriculum. Yes. I'm Bobby Iacino Jr., and this is what I want to use my UBI for when I turn 18. I'm going to go into this. What'd you say?
Yeah. Buy a motorcycle, but go ahead. Bobby Iacino Jr.
He's not going to buy a motorcycle. He's not
Probably would.
That. No. But I think that this could offset the current of, kids are, I don't have kids yet, but the upcoming generation, they're just going to be in so much trouble for so many different reasons. I think the wealth gap is going to continue to be more severe, and you're going to have kids with little to no direction. The skills-based jobs that existed yesterday obviously are not going to, like you were just saying. The other end of that is, all these rich, sexy, sort of, fancy gamer kids, they're going to be on the other end, and they may not pay attention to their UBI because, they're already making $200,000 a year when they're 14 years old on Twitch. So what I mean is the UBI could enforce some padding with development of kids in the middle.
Yes.
So that they can help plan a more reasonable career to then grow into.
Let me jump in on a couple of the points, because again, I think if Paul and I jumped on a road, we end up at the same destination, right? We just got to take different paths to it. And one of the reasons, and again, I'm just going to throw out there again that almost everything I say is based off my immigrant upbringing, right? So my brother currently owns a bakery restaurant in the suburbs of Chicago. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that he's told me with the recent, I'll give you a very specific anecdotal example. This is anecdotal. He makes these Italian cookies, and the car dealerships used to come in and buy bunches of cookies and put them out on Saturdays and Sundays to attract people in to buy cars. My brother raised his prices by 30 cents and they stopped coming. And when he bumped into one of them and asked him why, he said, your cookies are better, but we're giving them away. So we just go to Walmart now, or Costco's bakery, one of those. So he cut the price again and they started coming back in.
How long ago was this?
This was about 2-3 years ago.
Oh, really?
Pre-pandemic. It was pre-pandemic. So according to the BLS in 2019, 1.9% of the workforce gets paid the minimum wage or less. A big portion of those are restaurant workers, but they're not counted because they're supposed to get tips, right? So if you're taking those people out, it's about 1.9% of the workforce. My brother has about 30, 40 employees, and about 25 of them are in high school, right? His other 14, 15 are production people. A lot of them immigrants, whether documented or not, it's none of my business. He pays these people basically the minimum wage, and what they do is they put cookies in boxes, right? Now, there's machines that do that, but he can't afford them. And as the minimum wage rises, he has to either stop doing the cookies, raise the price and lose the clients, or just shut down. Where Costco, Walmart, they don't have to do that. So in some cases, I sometimes, again, this is anecdotal, not statistical, I see the minimum wage as a problem for smaller businesses. On top of that, when I hear living wage, and I know this is not what you said, Paul, so I'm not putting words in your mouth, but when I hear living wage, I think, I know what I make to live in South Florida, and I know how I live. And I know that the money I make in South Florida is a quasi wealthy person in, say, Montana, and a very scraping the lower middle class in Manhattan. And I always have an issue, even in a place like Manhattan. I was discussing a living wage with my friend's wife one time. And she said, well, I think people should be paid a minimum living wage. And I said, okay, what's a living wage? If your neighbor is a single 22-year-old, whatever, call him a stockbroker, I don't care. And you're a mother of three, single mother of three, and you're paid the same living wage as a minimum. He's going to the bar every night and ordering DoorDash, and you're barely getting by.
Right.
So I wonder if your idea of UBI, it's too nuanced to go into now. But giving it to everyone, I think, is wonderful because equality is what we all want. But in terms of whether it is means tested or geographically tested, does it go down to a local level? How do you perceive, like, how do you think about those things?
Has to be.
I already got the answers.
Love it.
I already got the answer.
Of course.
Okay. When you have a UBI, that's money that people can save up and move. They can change jobs. They can change locations. It gives more options. And you're right, because I even talk about it in my book. $100 in Muscatine, Iowa goes a hell of a lot further than it does in, say, San Francisco, California.
Right.
Okay. Or New York, New York.
Iowa?
Yeah, Muscatine, Iowa. There's a reason why I used Muscatine, Iowa. It's a personal reason and all that. Muscatine, there was a lot of farmers that they grew watermelons and cantaloupes. And we would drive from the Quad Cities to Muscatine to get these awesome melons because they were the sweetest, juiciest watermelons and cantaloupe and honeydews that you could get anywhere in the area. So Muscatine, Iowa, and you could get a watermelon. Yes, Muscatine melons, and they're known for it. You can Google it, okay? I don't know if they are anymore, but they used to be. But you can go to a grocery store, and I mean, you get a watermelon for like $2-3 back in the day, and you can go to Muscatine and you can pick up like 10 watermelons for $2-3. So that weekend barbecue was now you had melons from Muscatine that everybody loved, but. Anyways, we were talking about, if by what I have in my cost of living amendments, every 6 months, the cost of living, the median cost of living throughout the United States is figured out. And that determines the cost of living wage. Okay. So every 6 months that's figured out. And then 6 months later, that new wage goes into effect. One, if corporations are going to raise their prices up on their goods, and you have this highest point, the highest point is the means. Okay. And that's what's going to be used. I mean, it becomes the used data for the median across the nation. So if corporations want to jack their stuff up and then try to bring it down, thinking that they can, alter what's going on. No, it's set to where it's at the highest. Now that becomes your cost of living wage. So every 6 months, cost of living wage is going up or down according to what the cost of living is. Now, that person that's living in Muscatine, they're in hog heaven because now they got a great cost of living wage and they got a UBI. They are living the life. Somebody in New York that's getting the cost of living wage and is getting the UBI is saying, this sucks. I can't make it. I need to move somewhere else. I think that if this is done, things across the nation are going to start to level out over a period of time. It's not going to be overnight, but I think people will start to relocate, and eventually things are going to, instead of being like this, it's all going to start to come like this. So I think over a period of maybe a decade, 2 decades, cost of living across the nation will start to level out. So, and I think we need to do that. I think that needs to be done to where people can pick up and go and be able to live wherever it is they want to.
Now, would you have the confidence in the government in its current form? I think I know your answer to this, to administer this correctly. And I'll give you my reason why I asked this. Eric Weinstein, who's a mathematician, just a brilliant guy, recently gave a presentation at the University of Chicago on the CPI and how flawed it is. Now, obviously, you didn't bring up the CPI, so I'm putting words in your mouth if I say that your method is marked to the consumer price index. But for example, localized rents are sort of incorrectly calculated in the CPI. And, like the SNAP benefits, for example, about 2 years ago, I had a friend that fell on some really hard times, and he was very anti going on the dole, so to speak. And he asked me to help him figure out what his SNAP benefits would be, because he felt this was sort of a good way to get started. He had a family of 3, him and his wife and a small kid. And I said, okay, let me help you figure out your SNAP benefits. Man, it is a mess. It is an absolute mess. Just for example, the housing deduction is $597 in the SNAP program. Why is it $597? Where that sounds like some sort of internet email you would get for a year subscription to a stock market service or something, where they try to make it not 600 and make it look like 500. And then there's $78 they allot for childcare, but it's $177 a child for housing, and it was just such a mess. Yes. As opposed to a UBI, which is just, here's your money, your plan or Andrew Yang's. So would you have confidence in 2 things? Number one, the current government administrating something like this. And number 2, the eventual, if we go to de Tocqueville, for example, the eventual bribing the politicians bribing the voters with their own money. So in other words, a rich person has 1 vote, a poor person has 1 vote. It's the only place they're equal. Take corporation madness out of it, because I think corporations should be completely out of politics. But you can go to people below a certain level and say, we'll raise yours and hold theirs at Paul's 4%. Do you have any confidence in any of that in the existing situation?
The existing government? Hell no.
Thank you.
No, they're corporate politicians.
They're a mess.
Okay, the majority of them are corporate politicians, and I don't care which side of the aisle you fall on. Okay, left or right.
Thank you.
I dislike Republicans. I dislike Democrats. I call myself a progressive socialist. Okay, and and again, there's that word socialist. People are scared of. Okay, it's in our Constitution, Article 1, Section 8. Congress has the right to collect and lay taxes. That is socialism. So if you're against socialism, you're against our Constitution. Okay. Our form of socialism is the greatest form of all, because the government doesn't own for profit. When the government owns for profit, now you're getting into bad socialism, and eventually you're getting into communism. I got a whole other thing on that. That's corporate capitalist communism. That's where we're headed. But the politicians that are in office today, whether they're on the left or the right, all they care about is what their corporate masters tell them. Just like this infrastructure bill that they're all saying it's bipartisan, it's the greatest thing. I read those 6,000 pages. I got an article that Aacia now holds on those 6,000 pages. That is a corporate bill, period. And minorities and women-owned businesses are discriminated against highly in this bill. And I want to get it all out.
That I want to hear about.
Okay.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's all right. So this government that we have that's in there right now, they're corporate politicians. They don't care about the people. And my message that I want to get out there is it's no longer about left and right. Get over your bad self. If you think you're a Republican or you think you're a Democrat, you're full of shit, because you're just taking a side because that's the side you want to be on. Okay. It's about corporatism and humanitarianism. All right. You're either for the people or you're for the corporations. Which is it going to be? Because if you're for the corporations, you're a piece of garbage as a politician. If you're working for the people, then you're doing what you're supposed to be doing as a politician. It's supposed to be for the people. Right now, we have corporate politicians. They don't care about us. They don't care about you. They don't care about me. They don't care about Aacia. They don't care about our kids, my puppy dog, the yard I have. They don't care about anything.
So now we're not only at the same destination, we're living in the same house, as you say that stuff.
Yes.
That's, I want to clap, but it's weird.
You can
Let me ask you a
clap.
question on that. Well, yeah, I mean, it's just a weird, I have one bad hand, so it's
But
a
now you
weird
said it.
kind of a,
Oh, right.
you know,
You have to tell Paul that story.
the story about this hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a motorcycle accident, so I don't have full use of my right hand, and people don't know it because I don't make a big deal about it. I don't tell anyone about it. I don't have a handicap sticker. I can walk to the grocery store from the far away places. It's fine.
Right.
But
You both have very obscure injuries that
What's
add.
that?
You both have very obscure stories and injuries that
yeah,
add to. I think your color. Sorry, I'm having like.
I have a minor interest in black markets because I see my childhood as having been a black market, doing things my parents didn't want me to do without telling them. A lot of us did that. That's almost a black market.
Yeah.
Bought a motorcycle, hit it from my parents, crashed into a wall. And over the course of 2 years, I had some scar tissue buildup, create nerve damage in my right arm. I had a huge scar going from here to here, which is now mostly covered by tattoos, but I don't have the full use of my right hand. And because I can make a fist, no one ever notices it. So you see me on TV or something, you'll see me doing this with my hands because I can't open the right.
You do that.
I do that because I try, in order to not draw attention to it, to either move one hand or move the other.
Yeah,
it looks kind of like an Italian thing when I do it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But going all the way back to the political side of it, part of the reason I wanted to be involved in this with Aacia is because this in the middle thing is because I've always fancied, like you put your colors on with the Democratic Socialist. I believe that's what you said, right?
No, progressive socialist.
Progressive socialist. Okay.
Okay. Not left, not right.
That's
okay.
fine.
And not forward like Yang on my own thing. I believe in progressive policies that are humanitarian based.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where my progressiveness comes in. And I believe in socialism to the point of for the people, the tax money that we pay, and I got a whole new taxation system, but the tax money that we pay is supposed to be for the people, not for the corporations.
Okay, so we're in complete agreement on that. I consider myself a humanitarian conservative, right? And I think that's a little misleading because now you can't say conservative without it being read as negative, corporate. You know, again, my entire family life was built on small businesses.
Mm-hmm.
My father worked in a small business in Chicago that when it became a big business, they fired him and hired their son in his place, the owners of the new larger business. So my father went off and created his own. And I have an idol complex with my father. My father's the most influential, most beautiful human being I've ever seen walk the planet. And all he ever said was, just let me go to work and I'll take care of my family and my friends. One of the things I tell, I have quite a few black friends, and when they talk about the difference between Italians and black folk, I tell them all the time that one of the things I don't see black people doing enough of is when they start to earn, forget white people, don't hire them for anything.
Right.
And this is a cultural thing. Like my father, when he started to succeed in his own business, moved from below the poverty line to lower middle class to middle class. When he wanted to put in a driveway, he looked for an Italian contractor. When he wanted to put in a patio, he looked for an Italian bricklayer. When he wanted somebody to repair the ovens in his Italian bakery, he looked for an Italian oven guy, couldn't find one. So he hired Polish oven guys. He was always looking for immigrants to pay for work for. And there was obviously a lot of Hispanics and Mexicans specifically that worked at our bakery in Chicago. He rarely could find what he would consider to be white people. Now, I'm considered white in the current culture, but I don't relate to a lot of things that people would consider to be white, except the word conservative in the way that I would describe myself. But
Yeah.
from that perspective,
Now, let me ask you something real quick.
please do. Please do.
All right. Conservative, do you take on that title because of the small business aspect of your
Yes.
beliefs? Okay.
Yes.
Believe it or not, that would actually then make you a liberal. Because if you go all the way back to
Classic liberal.
73, if you go all the way back to 73 and you start looking, even though the Republican conservatives ran on doing things for small businesses and claimed that they were for the small businessman, they actually did more in the last 50 years to hurt the small businessman, where when you look at the bills that are passed that actually help small business, they're actually liberal bills.
Mhm.
And it's like, so you say you're a conservative for this reason, but guess what? It's the liberals that did it that helped you. So, and again, this is where I get frustrated about when people start taking on left and right identities and thinking that this is because this is what they say that they do. When you start looking at the bills that are passed, they don't uphold that. And it's not just the right that does that. The left does it also. So
Right.
I'm not saying that, no, that you're a conservative. No, you're the liberals. They do just as bad and just as many things as what the right does. So anyways.
Well, I'll let you, to augment on that, I voted for Bill Clinton twice, and then I voted for George Bush twice, then I voted for Obama once, and then I stopped voting for either party. And again, I believe more in local government than I do in federal. I'm much more interested, and I've just moved to Florida, so I've started researching down here, and I registered as an independent only to find that I can now not vote in primaries, which is a kind of a controlling thing by the parties.
Yep.
It's like, why shouldn't I be able to vote in both primaries? I guess I can't vote twice, or either primary that I choose. But whatever, I'll work on that, because I don't want to register as either. I voted Libertarian in the last two presidential candidates, not because I'm a Libertarian, just because I didn't want either one of these parties to be my fault anymore.
Right.
Because we're on the same page on Republicans are garbage and Democrats are garbage, and I mean the legacy.
Thank you so much to Paul Sisler for spending time with us, and we can't wait to check out the red herring effect. This has been really eye-opening about universal base income. I'm sure there's going to be lots of questions. You have been listening to Aacia in the Middle with Bobby Iacchino.